Listen, life has a way of testing you through people you once trusted with your whole heart. Sometimes the same hands you reach for are the ones that push you into your darkest season. And then one day, out of nowhere, they show up again, knocking on the same door they slammed on you. Before you get caught in the confusion, before you start questioning your worth or rewriting the past, you need to understand this truth. There is only one real reason someone comes back into your life after hurting you. It isn't mystery. It isn't destiny. It isn't love resurfacing. It's alignment. It's timing. And it's the shift in the power dynamic that they never expected you to grow into. Today, I want to break this down into 5 key realities. Lessons built from experience, real stories, and the patterns we see every day but rarely decode. Listen closely, because understanding this will save you from cycles, save you from pain, and maybe even save you from yourself. Energy is loud even when you're silent. People can feel your shift before they ever see the physical results. They can sense when your spirit detaches, when your heart stops reaching, when your mind finally chooses peace over pain, and that's when they show up. The same people who hurt you, the same ones who made you question yourself, the same ones who took your loyalty for granted. They return because something in you is different now. You're moving in a way they didn't expect. You're no longer feeding their ego with your attention, and that absence hits them harder than any argument ever could. It happens the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop pouring energy into someone who doesn't pour it back, the moment you stop letting their absence rewrite your story, when you finally realize you were carrying a weight that wasn't yours and you drop it. That silence echoes. That is the shift they feel. They don't feel your pain. They feel your power waking up. It's like walking away from the neighborhood you grew up in. For years, you stood on the same corner with the same people, repeating the same routines, thinking that was the only world you belonged to. But the day you stepped away, the day you took a new route, people noticed. They started asking, where you been? What you doing now? Why are you moving different? They weren't curious about your success. They were curious about your change. Because your shift made them uncomfortable with their own lack of growth. People who hurt you never expect you to evolve without them. They think you'll stay in that broken version they created. They assume you'll always be reachable, always be vulnerable, always be waiting. They underestimate the strength that grows in silence. They don't realize that heartbreak is a teacher, and pain forces you into a level of self-awareness that comfort never could. Once you start rebuilding, even slowly, they feel that distance spiritually before they notice it physically. I once met a woman who told me she loved a man with her entire soul. She gave him loyalty he didn't earn, time he didn't value, tears he didn't deserve. When he walked away, her world fell apart. She cried every night. She replayed every moment, wondering what she did wrong. She would check his social media like it was homework. She kept hoping he'd see her pain and care. But life doesn't work like that. Care never comes from the person who caused the damage. But something changed. She got tired of hurting. She started therapy. She got a notebook and wrote down every feeling until it stopped controlling her. She went on walks. She started focusing on her own life instead of his. Slowly, her heart began to remember who she was before the heartbreak. And the moment she stopped checking his page, the moment she stopped wondering what he was doing, the moment she shifted her energy back to herself, he texted her. Not because he changed, not because he suddenly valued her, not because he realized her worth overnight. He texted because he felt his access slipping. He felt her energy no longer orbiting him. It wasn't love, it was fear. Fear of losing the control he once had, fear of losing the comfort she gave, fear of facing his own emptiness without her presence filling it. That's the truth nobody wants to admit. People come back not when they miss you, but when they feel you moving on. When your energy was centered on them, they felt important. When your attention was glued to them, they felt powerful. But energy is currency. And when you stop spending it on someone who mistreated you, they feel broke. They feel that shift. Suddenly, they are the ones wondering what happened. They are the ones checking your page. They are the ones replaying memories. Your silence becomes a mirror that forces them to face their action. And you know what's crazy? People always return when their ego is wounded, not their heart. They don't care about the nights you cried, the years you gave, the love you poured. They care that they lost control. They care that you don't need them anymore. They care that you finally learn to breathe without their validation. When you grow, you disrupt their comfort. You stop being predictable. You stop being emotionally available on demand. You stop being their backup plan. That energy shift becomes a spotlight on the parts of their life that haven't changed. And instead of working on themselves, they gravitate back to the place where they once felt powerful, you. But here's the beauty in it. Your energy becomes a filter. When you rise, the wrong people fall off naturally. When you heal, the people who benefited from your wounds lose access. When you choose yourself, the ones who relied on your self-neglect start knocking, hoping you forgot who they were. But you didn't forget. You grew, you learned, you saw yourself clearly for the first time. And with that clarity comes strength. Strength to say no, strength to close the door, strength to protect the version of you that finally knows peace. People don't come back because they deserve another chance. They come back because they fear they won't get one. There's a difference. Pay attention to it. Energy doesn't lie. When your spirit elevates, when your focus sharpens, when your heart starts beating for your future instead of your past, the people who took you for granted will feel it. They will show up. They will call. They will try to reconnect, not because they're meant to return, but because your glow is a reminder of the blessing they wasted. And the moment you understand that, you stop taking their return personally. You stop seeing it as a compliment. You stop believing their words. You realize it's not about love, it's about loss. They lost the version of you who tolerated less than you deserved. They lost the version of you who accepted excuses. They lost the version of you who didn't know your own worth. And they will always return to see if that version still exists. But it doesn't. You evolved, you elevated, you outgrew the space where they left you. And that's why they back. Not for you, but for the access you'll never give again. Most people leave because they think the grass is greener somewhere else. They convince themselves that change will bring them happiness, that someone new will fill a hole they didn't even understand, that a different environment or a new distraction will finally make life easier. They chase novelty like it's the answer to their questions, like it's a magic fix for the mistakes they made, the commitments they neglected, the love they undervalued. They leave thinking that excitement is the same as fulfillment, that newness equals growth, and that comfort with someone else could ever match the depth of what they abandoned. But life is real. Reality has a way of showing up no matter how fast you run, no matter how many distractions you line up, no matter how many new experiences you chase. The excitement fades, the novelty wears thin. The person they thought would never leave them turns out to be human with flaws and limits. And the moment they come face to face with the truth that nothing outside of themselves can bring them the peace or satisfaction they were searching for, they start thinking about what they left behind. And that's when you appear to them differently. You're no longer just a presence, you're a reflection of stability, of loyalty, of love they didn't earn and cannot recreate. Suddenly the things they didn't appreciate become painfully clear. Your voice, your energy, your patience, your support, all of it suddenly looks like a treasure they failed to value. That's when they start remembering the nights you stayed awake, the sacrifices you made, the moments you held them up when they couldn't hold themselves. You start looking like the blessing you always were, the one they left assuming you would wait forever, or that you were replaceable. There's research behind it. Studies show that impulsive decisions to leave relationships rarely lead to lasting satisfaction. Most people who return to former partners don't do it because they suddenly realize they were wrong about love. They do it because the new experiences they sought failed to match the comfort, the consistency, the understanding that they had with someone who truly cared. Nostalgia creeps in. Regret builds quietly, and when their ego settles, when the thrill of chasing something new dissipates, they remember the foundation they left behind. That foundation is you. Sometimes they come back not because they've matured, but because they miscalculated. They underestimated the depth of what you offered, the kind of love that isn't performative, the patience that isn't unlimited but always available when deserved. They misjudge your value, and life has a way of teaching lessons through absence. They see you thriving without them. They see you living on your terms, and they realize that what they abandoned wasn't replaceable. What they left wasn't just a person, it was a presence, a force, a partnership that reflected what they couldn't give. I've seen it happen countless times. A man leaves a woman thinking she'll never be enough because he's chasing the excitement of someone new. He spends months with someone else, experiences a few fleeting highs, and then comes back, hoping the first one will forgive him. He doesn't realize the comfort, the understanding, the loyalty, the wisdom he left behind cannot be replicated. The second time around, a relationship isn't about love. It's about their realization that they misjudged the worth of someone who never tried to manipulate or control them. It's about facing the consequences of leaving what was real for what felt temporary. People return because the illusions they chase fade when reality sets in. Life doesn't bend to ego. Happiness doesn't live in someone else's arms without connection. What you offered was consistent, authentic, grounded in reality, and no amount of external excitement could imitate it. And now, when they come back, it's not a declaration of change. It's a response to their own miscalculation. They feel the loss. They feel the void. They feel the truth they tried to avoid. But this is where your awareness matters. When someone comes back because they misjudged you, it's a test of your growth, your understanding of your own value. They may want access to what they lost, but you're no longer the same person they left behind. Your love is no longer available on demand. Your energy is no longer orbiting them. Your peace is no longer negotiable. Life is a reflection of your boundaries. And now that you've shifted, they have to adjust, not you. The people who come back at this stage often try to convince themselves that their return is about redemption. They might apologize, make promises, or attempt gestures to regain what they left behind. But the truth is, their return is rooted in the recognition of their own missteps. And when you see it clearly, when you understand the reason behind their presence, it changes the way you respond. You're no longer operating from longing or fear, but from clarity, from knowledge of the value you carry and the strength you've built in their absence. This is why timing matters more than intentions. They return when their timeline collides with reality. Their life, without the authenticity, without the loyalty, without the foundation you gave, begins to feel hollow. And that's when they notice that what they left behind was irreplaceable. You've built a life that cannot be duplicated, a presence that cannot be mirrored, and a strength that cannot be borrowed. That's why they feel compelled to return, because reality doesn't forgive the mistakes of ego. Understanding this changes everything. It teaches you that their return is never about you needing them. It's about them realizing what they lost. You're not a prize to be won back. You're a reflection of alignment, of stability, of authenticity. And when you internalize that, you stop being reactive. You stop letting the past dictate your present. You start seeing their return as a signal of your own growth, a testament to the fact that you've moved past what they couldn't respect. The energy shift, the miscalculation, the fading excitement, all of it is a reminder that life moves in cycles and lessons. People come back when they realize the value they lost, when they understand that nothing external can replace the presence and energy you brought to their life. And when you finally see this, you no longer view them as a threat, a temptation, or a test. You see them as a mirror of their own growth or lack thereof, and you respond from a place of strength, not need. You begin to understand that people returning isn't validation. It's a reflection of their journey, not yours. You realize that the grass they chased wasn't greener, that the excitement they pursued wasn't sustainable, and that the person they left behind was always the constant they couldn't replicate. Their return becomes proof of their miscalculation, their recognition of their loss, and a reminder of the wisdom you gained by walking away, by focusing on yourself, and by building a life grounded in authenticity rather than convenience. And when you fully grasp this, you no longer fear their return. You no longer let it disrupt your peace. You no longer give them control over your energy, your emotions, or your decisions. You've learned that their presence is optional, that your worth is non-negotiable, and that the life you're building is for your growth, your vision, and your purpose. You understand that what they left behind cannot be recreated, and what you've built in their absence is proof of your own evolution. People come back when their life doesn't go the way they thought. They come back when excitement fades, when distraction fails, when ego is humbled by reality. And when they do, it's not about your love or your forgiveness. It's about them recognizing what they left, about them miscalculating your value, and about them seeing the blessing they walked away from. And when that happens, you smile quietly, because now you know that your peace, your energy, and your growth are yours alone, and no one can take that from you. Growth is the loudest revenge you'll ever have. It's not about yelling. It's not about confrontation. It's not about proving them wrong in words. It's about showing up every day as a better version of yourself. When someone hurts you, when someone underestimates you, when someone betrays the trust you gave them freely, they expect a reaction. They expect you to crumble. They expect you to lose direction. They expect the pain they caused to have the power to define you. But what they don't expect, what they rarely prepare for, is that you will rise without them, that your evolution will continue in silence, that your life will flourish in a way that no apology or explanation can reverse. Maybe you started leveling up emotionally, financially, spiritually. Maybe you began investing in yourself, building your mind, your skills, your peace. Maybe you finally stopped chasing the approval of people who never valued it, and you started listening to the voice inside that always knew your worth. And in doing this, you disrupt their narrative. The story they wrote for you, the version of you that was quiet, insecure, and dependent on them no longer exists. You've become a new chapter, a presence they can't ignore, a life they didn't anticipate. Maybe you finally found peace. Maybe you stopped arguing with ghosts from the past and started living fully in the present. Maybe you started doing the things they once said you couldn't. Starting that business, building that career, traveling to the places they claimed were unrealistic, stepping into spaces they said you'd never belong in. And suddenly the person who hurt you or left you is reminded of everything they underestimated. Suddenly they see the proof that you didn't need them, that you were stronger than they believed, and that their absence wasn't the end of you. It was the beginning of your evolution. And that's when they come back. Suddenly they want closure. Suddenly they want to check on you. Suddenly they want to see how you've been. But it's never about closure for them. It's never about genuine care. It's never about realizing their mistakes and making amends in a way that honors your growth. What they want is proximity to the version of you they didn't believe you could become. They want access to the power, the energy, the focus that they thought they broke. They want to measure your progress against their ego and find a way to reclaim what they once dismissed. I've seen it happen too many times to ignore. Men come back to women they once doubted. Women who spent years building a life they didn't believe was possible. Women who invested in themselves, sharpened their minds, and claimed their destiny. The moment a woman turns a dream into reality, the men who walked away suddenly appear, curious, nostalgic, or envious, because the version of her they abandoned is no longer the same. They are drawn not by love, but by the gravity of her growth, the undeniable force of her transformation. I've seen women return to men they once rejected, men who stayed disciplined, elevated, and committed to becoming better than the version of themselves that faltered before. Time, focus, and persistence create a quiet power that cannot be ignored. They come back to witness it, to feel it, to measure it, sometimes in hope, sometimes in regret, sometimes in fear that they underestimated what was always meant to succeed. Growth humbles them because it exposes the gap between their expectation and reality, between what they left behind and what they refused to nurture. Growth is a mirror, and it's uncomfortable for anyone who tried to define you through limitation. The person who once hurt you, doubted you, or left you expects the same version to remain. They assume their absence would cause you to flounder, to shrink, to weaken. They never anticipate the power of resilience, the force of self-belief, the energy that comes from walking through pain and refusing to stay broken. And when they see you thriving without them, they realize their presence was never the source of your strength. It was always inside of you. And that realization makes them come back. Not because they suddenly love you, not because they suddenly see your worth is intrinsic to them, but because your energy is undeniable, because your progress speaks louder than any argument they could make, because they see you in a way they never did before, fully formed, unshakable, and unbound by the expectations they once imposed. People are drawn to power, even when it exposes their own weaknesses. Growth becomes magnetic, and those who once dismissed it cannot resist checking to see if it's real. I've watched countless stories unfold this way. A woman starts her dream business after years of ridicule, after people told her she couldn't. She faces rejection, fails a few times, but keeps going. She grows stronger, smarter, more confident. Suddenly, someone from her past appears, hoping her growth will somehow circle back to them. A man walks away from the woman they underestimated, only to return years later, intrigued by the success they ignored. The same happens with men who stay disciplined. They rise above doubt. They remain consistent. They honor their path. And women who once walked away are drawn back, curious to see what they missed. Growth humbles them because it exposes what they abandoned, what they didn't nurture, and what they underestimated. Your evolution is the loudest statement you'll ever make. It doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't require explanations. It doesn't require them to understand the journey. Your life will speak for itself. Every step you take forward, every goal you achieve, every habit you cultivate, every ounce of peace you reclaim becomes evidence of your resilience and your power. And the ones who return will be faced with the undeniable fact that you are no longer theirs to shape or control. You are whole on your own terms. People come back when growth humbles them. They return when they realize that the version of you they hurt or abandoned is no longer available for manipulation. They return when they see you achieving the life they thought would break you. They return when they feel the energy of someone who's learned their value and refused to compromise it again. And when they do, you will know the truth, that your power, your peace, and your progress are yours to keep, not theirs to borrow or test. Growth is silent, but it's undeniable. It's a form of victory that no words can explain. And when they come back, it is a reflection of the transformation that only you could create. They come back because they misjudged, because they doubted, because they failed to see your potential. Your response is no longer dictated by the past. It is dictated by your awareness, your boundaries, and your understanding that your life is yours to live, not theirs to revisit. Your growth is the loudest revenge you will ever have. It's a force that draws attention, commands respect, and humbles those who once underestimated you. And the beauty of it is that you never had to seek validation, never had to prove your worth, never had to fight for acknowledgement. You simply grew, simply evolved, simply lived. And the ones who return will see it, feel it, and learn, often too late, that what they left behind was never theirs to take for granted. This is one of the hardest truths to swallow. The people who hurt us, the ones who left scars we thought would never heal, sometimes come back not because they've realized your worth, not because they've reflected and grown, not because they suddenly understand the depth of what they lost. They come back because they believe you're still the same person they left behind. They come back because they think you haven't changed, because they think your heart is still open in ways that allow them to step back in and take what they need without giving anything in return. They come back because they assume your pain hasn't been transformed into wisdom, that your tears haven't been converted into strength, that your time, your energy, your loyalty, and your love are still theirs for the taking. Some people return because they want comfort, not commitment. They want familiarity, not responsibility. They want the warmth of your presence when it benefits them, without the accountability that comes with truly valuing someone. They don't want the challenge of earning your trust again. They want the ease of taking from a well they think will never run dry. They return assuming that the version of you that cried, that forgave too easily, that bent too far for their convenience is still accessible. They underestimate the growth you've gone through, the lessons you've internalized, the boundaries you've erected to protect yourself. Real life has a way of showing us exactly who people are, and sometimes the truth is harsher than we imagine. I remember a story of a woman who once told me about a man in her past. He said to her openly, "I go back to my ex because I know she'll take me back every time, not because he loved her, not because he changed, not because he realized the mistakes he made and wanted to make amends in a way that honored her. He returned because he assumed she hadn't changed. He returned because he believed her boundaries were still weak. He returned because he believed her heart was still pliable, still vulnerable, still available to him on demand." That's the kind of person who comes back. Someone who mistakes your past for your present, who assumes your silence, patience, and forgiveness are weaknesses rather than the strength they really are. People come back when they believe you'll still accept a version of them that hurt you the first time. And that's why boundaries are everything. Your growth, your healing, your awareness. They are the keys that determine whether someone who returns gets access or gets reflection. When they think you haven't learned, they are trying to step into the same dynamics they once controlled. They are hoping that your heart, your time, and your trust are still theirs to command, hoping that your evolution hasn't reached a point where you value yourself more than their presence. This is why healing isn't just about forgiving or moving on. It's about claiming your power. It's about understanding that your worth is not negotiable. It's about recognizing that someone's return does not require your validation, your affection, or your attention. When you understand your own value, you stop giving access to those who once treated you as an option. You stop letting their familiarity trick you into believing that love comes with the same pain it did before. You stop assuming that their presence is a gift rather than a choice, and you start seeing it for what it really is, a reflection of their own ego, not an acknowledgement of your worth. Some people will test you because they want to know if the lessons you've learned are real. They want to see if the boundaries you've created are firm. They want to know if the love you've developed for yourself outweighs the longing to be accepted by someone who once diminished you. And that's when you see clearly who is returning for the right reasons and who is returning for the wrong ones. Those who come back because they recognize your value, because they see your growth, because they understand the price of what they lost, are rare. Those who come back because they assume weakness, because they believe your loyalty is endless, because they think they can slip back into your life without consequence, they are common, and their return is a test, not a redemption. The people who think you don't know your worth are often the same people who underestimated you from the beginning. They left when they thought you wouldn't stand without them. They hurt you because they believed they could, and when they come back, they are hoping nothing has changed. They are hoping that time and experience haven't taught you that your life, your energy, and your heart are yours first and foremost. They are hoping that they can step back into the story they abandoned without paying attention to the growth, the lessons, and the self-respect you've cultivated in their absence. The beauty in this truth is that it gives you clarity. It teaches you that you don't need to justify yourself or your boundaries to anyone. It teaches you that the past does not define your present unless you allow it. And it teaches you that your worth is not validated by someone returning to try and reclaim what they once treated carelessly. You are not a prize for those who misjudge you. You are not a resource for those who fail to respect you. You are a person who has learned, who has grown, who has claimed their power, and who will no longer allow someone else's perception of your value to dictate your peace. People return thinking you still don't know your worth, because that's how they navigate life, through shortcuts, through assumptions, through familiarity that serves them without asking them to change. But when you know your worth, their return becomes an observation, not an opportunity. You recognize their intentions and you respond with wisdom, not reaction. You see their presence for what it truly is, and you decide whether it aligns with your life, your growth, and your energy. The lesson is clear. Your worth is non-negotiable, your boundaries are sacred, and your growth is irreversible. Those who come back expecting the old version of you, the version that would accept them blindly, the version that would tolerate the same patterns over and over, are the ones who reveal themselves without needing to speak. They show you exactly why you stopped allowing access in the first place. They show you the value of your lessons, the strength of your healing, and the depth of your self-respect. When someone returns believing you still don't know your worth, it's a moment to honor your evolution. It's a moment to observe without attachment, to respond without desperation, to maintain the boundaries that protect your heart. And in doing so, you teach them something they may never fully grasp. That your love, your loyalty, and your life are not theirs to manipulate, reclaim, or take for granted. You are sovereign over your energy. You are the master of your presence. You are the keeper of your peace. Every cycle repeats until you master it. Life has a rhythm, and it often sends people back into our lives not because they are meant to stay, not because they suddenly understand, but because the universe is giving you a final exam. It's a test to see if the lessons you've learned are real, if the growth you fought for is permanent, if the boundaries you've set are strong enough to hold against temptation, nostalgia, or the ego of someone who once hurt you. Sometimes the universe doesn't send people back to heal old wounds for them. It sends them back so you can demonstrate to yourself and the world that you have grown beyond the patterns that once defined you. Think about it. The strongest moments in your life weren't when you held on to something that was breaking you. They weren't in the moments you begged, pleaded, or compromised who you were to accommodate someone else's flaws. The strongest moments came when you finally let go, when you released the attachment, the expectation, the need for validation, when you said to yourself, I am worth more than this. I deserve better. I will no longer allow my energy to be drained by what isn't meant for me. Those are the moments when real transformation begins. Your greatest evolution often happens right after you refuse to repeat an old mistake. It happens when you walk away from the familiar pain and step into the unfamiliar strength. It happens when you stop seeking approval from the people who doubted you and start seeking alignment with yourself. It happens when you learn that letting go doesn't mean loss, it means liberation. And sometimes, to confirm that liberation, the universe will place the same challenges, the same people, or the same opportunities in front of you again. People come back so you can show that you are no longer the person who tolerated what once broke you. They come back to see if your growth is authentic, to test if your boundaries hold, to see if your self-respect is more than a temporary shield. They come back as a mirror, reflecting the lessons you've absorbed. They come back not because they deserve a second chance, not because they've earned it, but because the universe wants to measure the distance you've traveled Life often disguises these moments as coincidences, as chance encounters, as unexpected messages or visits. But when someone from your past resurfaces, it's rarely about them. It's about you. It's about giving you the opportunity to act differently, to respond with awareness instead of habit, to demonstrate that the pain you once experienced no longer dictates your choices. You are being asked to prove that you can operate from strength rather than fear, wisdom rather than impulse, peace rather than chaos. I've watched it happen countless times. People who were once hurt return, hoping to find the same vulnerability, the same easy access. But the person they encounter is transformed. She no longer bends to the will of someone who disrespected her. He no longer compromises his growth for someone who undervalued him. Their return is a test, a reflection, a measure of how much we've internalized the lessons life taught us through struggle, heartbreak, and disappointment. The test isn't always easy. Sometimes the presence of someone who once hurt you triggers old emotions, old doubts, old habits. It's natural to feel the pull, the nostalgia, the desire to make things right, even if it's at your expense. But the lesson is in how you respond. The lesson is in whether you allow history to repeat itself or whether you stand firm, demonstrating that your growth is now the standard by which your life operates. It's about showing yourself that you no longer need external validation to honor your worth. It's about proving that the love, respect, and boundaries you've cultivated are non-negotiable. Every moment you resist falling back into old patterns. Every time you hold firm in your boundaries. Every time you choose your peace over their presence, you reinforce the truth that you are not the person who tolerated what once hurt you. You become living proof of transformation. You show the universe and yourself that your healing is real, that your lessons are learned, and that your growth cannot be undone by nostalgia, guilt, or manipulation. People come back to test your evolution because they cannot bear to see you unchanged. They cannot see that their absence didn't diminish you. They cannot understand that their attempts to re-enter your life will meet a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and unwilling to compromise for what isn't meant to stay. And that's when you realize the power of your own transformation. The power isn't in their return. The power is in your response, in the life you've built without needing them, in the clarity that you control your energy, your love, and your boundaries. Your healing, your strength, and your self-love become a shield that no past mistake, no familiar face, and no emotional manipulation can penetrate. People come back so you can prove that the lessons they forced you to learn were not temporary.